Hello, my name is Chuck Wolf. Over the years, I've worked in many different roles, including leading my own leadership consulting company since 1994. I've worked for and with some of the best companies and universities in the world, and have had the opportunity to work with government officials, military organizations, and public and private schools. I'm a leading expert and pioneer in emotional intelligence. Since 2009, I have been a volunteer hosting a radio show I created called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I really enjoy making a difference in people's lives. The show is on award-winning community radio station WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut. In recent years, Simsbury Community Television has been sharing my shows on their station and on YouTube. My sincere hope is that everyone who watches regularly will learn how to use the Emotion Roadmap in their own lives by listening to people who call in to get help with challenges at work, home, and in communities. To learn more, go to www.emotionroadmap.com. If you have a comment or question, email me at cjwolf@cjwolf.com. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hi, this is Chuck Wolf, and you're listening to WPKN 89.5 FM, listener-supported radio, and the show is The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And I'm hopeful today that I'm going to have some phones that work, but it's possible in today's world that with the move happening that we may not have phones. So I'm going to try it for a second. I might have got them to work. We'll see if anything's working here. It doesn't look like it. Oh yeah, maybe we got phones. So if you understand the nature of the show is that you get to call in. You get to speak to me. Again, I'm Chuck Wolf. I have some expertise, as those of you who listen regularly know, in this area called emotional intelligence, and it's brought me to my almost 13th year. I'm going to be moving into my 13th year in December, so I've been on the air for a while, so I'm really thankful for all of those of you that like to tune in and listen regularly. For those of you who are new to the show and just heard about me and wanted to listen, I'm on the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 to 1 p.m., and as you may know, if you're a regular listener of WPKN's, you know, we're moving. We're going to be moving downtown Bridgeport. It's an exciting opportunity and time. Lots of things going on as the last remnants of what we're doing in the University of Bridgeport, where we've been for a lot of years. We're moving everything over. And so that's all happening as we speak. And I wanted to say thank you to those who have been listening regularly, and also I want to welcome any new listeners. For those of you who don't know what the show is about, a number of years ago, a friend of mine, a fellow named Lou Pomalis, who some of you may get to have listened to on the radio here. He's been here for a lot of years, probably close to 40-some years now. And he is someone who's was in a class of mine. I was teaching at the University of Hartford at the time, and I was teaching about emotional intelligence in organizations. And he really liked some of what I was talking about when I was teaching the class how to use this concept I created called the Emotion Roadmap. And he said, Chuck, what would you think about coming on the air? And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I'm a volunteer at this radio station. Have you heard of WPKN? At the time I hadn't, because I live in Simsbury, Connecticut, and you don't get the station very clearly up there, so I hadn't really listened to it. But as I began to think about what Lou was asking me about what I consider being on the radio, I looked up the radio station, and I realized that it's a phenomenal place. And I've been here a long time now, and I got to know how phenomenal it actually is. It's won a number of awards, especially for its music. If you haven't listened before to the station, then I encourage you, if you love music, there's all kinds of different genres and programmers who don't use algorithms and come in with their own very special craft. And if you were listening just before I came in, you got to hear one of the best in the business, my friend Carl Frano, who does a wonderful show about the music of that I grew up with, and it's fun to hear it. And it's always fun to listen to Carl on the way down when I'm driving in. So anyway, I think that what you get is all kinds of different genres. So you hear, the other person who I'm opposite is I Messiah, who does some great work with reggae. And then following me is Richard Epstein, Nick. Nick has Nick plays lots of different kinds of classical and just really things that I never would think to listen to, but it's always really enjoyable. It's really interesting, and Richard plays classical and jazz and pop and rock and all kinds of things. Both of them have really interesting shows, as does almost every programmer on the show that I've ever had a chance to listen to. So. And by the way, I don't like everything that I listen to. It just doesn't appeal to my taste. But that's the beautiful thing about PK. And there's just so much unique, different people with ideas about what makes for good music. And they play incredibly interesting and provocative and compelling music that sometimes I just wouldn't think to listen to on my own. And yet when I've tuned to the station and just turned to the dial to 89.5 FM, I get to listen to some really intriguing and different kinds of music that I find myself really liking and enjoying. And that's the beauty in some ways of what the station brings. But it also has this community strip. And the community strip is something I've been part of for a number of years now. And it's this idea that we have people who have some expertise in different areas come on, and there's 12 to 1 time frame, and we talk about what we are expert in. And my expertise happens to be in something called emotional intelligence. And if you've never heard those terms before, I'd be a little surprised, but you may have heard them and never really thought much about them. And if you think about emotional intelligence, you realize that, hey, can somebody really be emotional and intelligent at the same time? I do a number of keynote speeches over the years and motivational speaking, and sometimes I'll joke with my audience and I'll say, doesn't emotional intelligence sound like an oxymoron? How many people have ever been really emotional before? And of course, everybody's been emotional, but how many can remember the last time they were emotional? And I ask them after they raise their hands and say, yeah, I remember being emotional. I said, did you also feel intelligent at the same time? Now, some people keep their hands up, but a lot of them don't. A lot of people feel like when they're emotional, it's anything but intelligent. They feel like their emotions are dominating and taking control. So, can you be emotionally intelligent, and what does that even mean? I belong to this group called the Consortium for Research on Emotional Intelligence in Organizations. And it's a group of, close to 100 people across across the world, really. The people in Australia, in Asia, in Europe, in South America. Lots of people from all kinds of places all around the world who are experts in this field and who are bringing together the science and research and methodologies and the science that tells us what we can predict if we understand somebody is emotionally intelligent in certain areas, and what we can predict if they're emotionally unintelligent in certain areas. They also show us what the insights are from the research that's being done, and the benefits from people trying to grow their skill set in emotional intelligence. And the cost of having some areas in this world of emotional intelligence, some of these skill sets, competencies, whatever you want to call them, that are lower than what you might want to have for a skill set. So when you think about your ability to manage emotions as an example, do you consider yourself high in that ability? Are you good at managing your emotions? I mean, what does it even mean to manage your emotions? Does it mean that you repress them, you hold them back, you don't deal with them, and you can move on, you can compartmentalize? Is that what it means? Or does it mean that you're open to them, that you experience them fully, but they don't necessarily control you? They just inform you, and they drive certain kinds of thoughts and behaviors, but you're in touch with that, and you actually are able to work on that and channel that constructively. And that's a skill set that you want to have. But not everybody has it to the same degrees. Some people are great at this. Maybe you're one of them. A lot of people are okay at it. Some people are really poor at it. And if you are not good at a certain skill set, like you don't identify how other people are feeling when you speak to them, you're not good at perceiving emotions in others, or you don't understand how what you just said or why what you just said made somebody else defensive or made them even cry. And you're not clear about how emotions drive your thoughts and your behaviors. And certainly we're good at some of these things. As you're listening, you're good at some of these things, and some of these things are a real struggle for you. Because when you have an intelligence, the whole idea of an intelligence and mapping it and measuring it is that you find that you have what they call a bell curve in research, and that the bell curve is where most people cluster. Most people have some average abilities in these areas, or what they call competence. Some people are extraordinarily talented in some of these areas, and others are really low and developmentally challenged in some of these areas. What do you do about all that? Well, I got asked to be part of a group of the pioneering psychologists who first studied and came up with this theory of emotional intelligence as an ability. And those people include Peter Salve, who currently is the president at Yale University, and John Mayer, who is a professor of psychology at the University of New Hampshire. And one of their colleagues then worked with them to develop a measure of what Jack and Peter discovered. And that's David Caruso. And David is currently working at Yale and also has his own consulting practice. And David and I and Jack and Peter all came together to work on how do we create a way to teach people how to use their model, their ability-based model of emotional intelligence that looks at your ability to identify emotions in yourself and others, your ability to use emotions effectively for you and for others, your ability to understand how emotions work, how emotions are impacted by the things you do and say. And you have the ability, if you're good at understanding, of predicting what you might do to change emotions for yourself and others. And finally, how do you manage emotions internally for yourself, and how do you manage and influence the emotions of others? And all of that is something that they conceived of as a model of a new intelligence back in 1990. They wrote a paper that is cited as the turning point for this discovery that there conceivably is this new intelligence out there called emotional intelligence. And then the story branches off and goes in all kinds of different directions. But one of the things that happened after that discovery was in the late 1990s, the three of them approached me and asked if I would work with them to help find a way to make what they had discovered practical. And the result of that work with them was the emotion roadmap. And the emotion roadmap is this idea that how do I help people, wherever you are ability-wise, do more with what you currently have as skill sets in these areas? How do I help you do more? How do I help you to be better? How do I help you to be more positive? How do I help you to gain more control over how you're feeling and how others are feeling? How do you influence others? And why is this important? It's important all over the place, right? I mean, there's a lot of things happening in our world today that are causing people to feel pretty depressed in a lot of ways, right? I mean, I'll go over a few of them, I guess. The positivity rate. Now, I wish positivity, the positivity rate on COVID is pretty high these days. It's getting up around 5 or 6% again. And that's scary because we thought, I think many of us thought anyway, that the pandemic was sort of behind us. And we weren't walking around with masks everywhere. And we were thinking that we can start traveling again. And we started to go to, entertainment. We started to go out to dinner in restaurants. And we started to go to concerts and ball games and theater. And all that seemed like it was starting back up. And now it looks like, again, positivity sounds like things should be better. But the positivity rate in COVID is just depressing as it gets higher with this new variant and other variants to come, I guess. So that's one thing. I guess what's happened in Afghanistan, there's good news, bad news, I guess. We have soldiers that have moved out, but there's still people left behind. And that's incredibly depressing to think that there are people left behind. Some Americans and some who worked and sacrificed to make our work over there easier. Translators, other people that assisted. That's really sad. And COVID spiking, of course, is sad. And so all these things are scary. And then you have your own personal drama, right? I mean, my own family, I've got some concerns health-wise with some of my children and grandchildren, and that's on my mind this morning. So it's kind of hard for my positivity rate to be up when you're feeling some of these concerns. And on top of that, I love being outdoors, and I love having this wonderful experience of being out in my garden. And just not too long ago, just about a week ago, I went to help a bush. We had some pretty heavy rains. More coming today if you're in the Bridgeport, Connecticut, or someplace in the Northeast. There's a lot of rain coming our way and some possible flooding, I guess. But anyway, I was out and I was trying to lift up a bush that had been kind of beaten down by some of the storms, and I was kind of lifting up some branches, to help them up. They usually rise by themselves, but I was thinking I was being helpful. Only what I didn't see was there was a paper wasp nest in amongst these branches, and when I lifted it up, it pulled that nest, and it stretched it. And in some cases, it came apart a little bit. And the wasps weren't happy with me when that happened, and so I got stung a bunch. And so I mean, you have all these things that happen that cause you not to have a high positivity rate yourself, right? So my show's been about trying to turn around how people feel. I mean, sometimes when something is upsetting or you have a loss or you're dealing with illness or all those kinds of things, I mean, there's a time for sadness. There's a time for prayer. There's a time for forgiveness. There's a time for apologies. There's a time for getting things right when things weren't right because of something that you may have impacted. There's lots of times when, you got to be sad and you got to deal with the grieving and you've got to deal with loss and you've got to deal with disappointment and some unfortunate circumstances. But how do you maintain resilience? How do you keep yourself uplifted? How do you help those around you to feel uplifted? I'm usually pretty good at this, and of course that's why I've been on the radio for a long time. I honestly believe that this emotion roadmap, which looks at anyone who has a tough situation they're dealing with and hasn't figured out what to do, it looks at what are the steps you can take, no matter what your skill set is on emotional abilities. What are the steps you can take to make life better for you and for others? What can you do? And the roadmap was this tool, this process, this methodology, a lot of things you can call it. But it's a series of steps. Sounds simple. It's not. It's not simple. That's why I've been on the show for a long time trying to teach people how to use this. And I'm glad you're listening today, and I hope I get the chance to use it. I hope you want to call in, and I'll explain why calling in is important. But primarily, it's to help people understand how to use this roadmap. And the roadmap works like this. If you've got a critical situation and it's important to you, the stakes are high, you're dealing with people maybe you love, maybe it's people you don't like at all, but you have to work with or have to deal with in some ways. Whatever it is that you're dealing with and you're uncertain and you're doubtful and you're concerned about what you might do and really unclear about how to proceed, you have lots of different options in your head, and none of them seem like the right one. When smart people are stuck, when excellent critical thinkers are stuck, my experience, and probably yours too if you think about it, is that something emotional is happening. So think about it. Are you stuck? Is there some place in your life where you're stuck? Is there some situation in your life, at work, in your community, in your home? Is there some place where you feel, hey, I got a problem and I don't know what to do? And I'm usually good at solving problems, but this one I'm really stuck on. My guess is something emotional is happening inside you. You're concerned emotionally about something, either inside yourself or you're worried about it with somebody else that might be out there that is the person or people you have to deal with. So the roadmap says, okay, look, tell me, and this is how I work with you if you want to call. Tell me about your situation. Tell me what's going on. Give me the executive summary. In business, people like to think executive summaries are one-pagers. They're not chapters. They're not 30 pages. Because sometimes when people got a situation that's problematic for them, it's been going on for a long time and they got lots of story with it. I wanted just the outline of the story because that's all I need. And then I ask you to think about, so who's key in this? Is it you and who else? Sometimes it's just inside yourself, but lots of times it's with at least one other person, maybe more than one, that's key. And then when you figure out who's key, I help you with that. And how you're feeling, you ask how they're feeling, and I realize you're guessing at this, but we try to figure out what are you feeling and how is the other people are feeling, and ask then, this is the second part of the model of the roadmap, and the ask is, what is it that you are feeling, and if what you're feeling isn't helpful, that's the key. If what you're feeling isn't helpful for what you want to do, or what you need to get done, or what you're trying to achieve, if what you're feeling isn't helpful, what feeling would be? What feeling would be ideal? And then if we come up with a feeling that would be ideal for you, that's where it stops at that point. And I ask if there's other people that are key, and more than one person, who are the key people, and what is it that he or she might be feeling, or they, and what is it that we want them to feel? What would be ideal for them to feel? And then after we figure out what we want to change from what are the current feelings, to what would be the compelling vision of the future, of feelings in the future that would be great if you could just magically wave a wand and create them, how would you do that? Well, that's the understanding part. So you go from identify what is it that people are feeling, including yourself, and then what would be ideal for those same people to feel, and then understanding is how do you get there? How do emotions work? And then I think of it not just as, I used to be a therapist, so part of this isn't just being a leadership coach or a motivational speaker or a leadership consultant around change. It's also about understanding how therapy works. And therapy means that you understand how emotions work. That's the science, but a good therapist also understands the uniqueness of the people or person that they're talking to and what's going to work for them or him or her. Because it isn't always the same. Just because we know how emotions work doesn't mean they work that way for you. And so that's where the art comes in. So there's science and art in this. So you go from what is to what would be compelling in terms of feelings. How do we get there? Understanding. And then managing, for me, became how do I take some of the ideas that I have for how to get from, let's say I'm feeling anxious and I want to feel confident in a situation. How do I do it for me? What are my strategies that might work? And as I consider strategies in the managing aspect of the roadmap, I ask, is it something I'm willing to do? Because sometimes I'm able, but that's another question. Am I able to do it? And if I am able, am I really willing? Because if I can answer yes, I'm able and I'm willing, I've got a plan that might work. And just like any plan, I implement that plan and modify it as needed. So the idea of an emotion roadmap is to give you tools to help you to manage difficult, challenging situations involving just you sometimes, because sometimes the conflict's internal, or it's with somebody else. And sometimes those are concerns with a boss, with people that you lead, with people that you work with. Sometimes it's with a husband, a wife, a partner, a colleague, a neighbor, somebody in your community where you're on an organization, or club, or a religious organization, or a civic organization, something where you are belonging, that you're doing some work and somehow, or you're doing some activity, not necessarily work, volunteer, whatever it might be, or even playing, you're in a sports team or you're in a band, and in some instances you find reasons to have conflict. And conflict causes concerns, and then you try to manage those concerns, and emotions get in the way, and you try to figure out how you deal with emotions. And even though we might have learned some things along in our lives at different points about how to deal with emotions, most of it's trial and error, and it doesn't always work the same in any case. So this process, if you can learn this process, is a life changer for a lot of people. It really is. And the way I can demonstrate that for you is if people want to call in. And if you call in, I can talk to you. And what I'll try and do is listen to you, try to help you with your situation. And as I try to help you with your situation, I'm explaining as I go through it how all those steps impact your situation. And as you find yourself going from, hopefully, I don't know if you feel totally helpless, but at least you're concerned or uncertain, and maybe even feeling helpless. By the end of the conversation, in most cases, people are feeling hopeful. And that's what I want to be able to do for you. If I do it for you and anybody else that's listening, everybody benefits. So let me give you the phone number here and see if people want to call in. It's always really fun if people call in, because I never know who's going to call, what they're going to say, and then I'm challenged in the next few minutes to try and figure out how to be helpful. And if I can be helpful, that's a big win. I love helping people. One of the reasons I do this show is because I'm a volunteer too, like all the other programmers here in the station. And so I volunteer my time to do the show because I really like it when I can help people. And the radio is a great place to help people, because if I just was helping people on the phone just one at a time, that's the only person that benefits. If I can help you and other people are listening, hopefully thousands of people get to listen to this, whether on the air live or later on. I'll post my shows on SoundCloud and iTunes and sometimes on the public radio exchange. Then lots of people get to listen. So the number to call is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Now, I give you those numbers because the best case scenario is somebody's got something they'd like some help with and they want to call in. And I can pick up the phone and answer that and work with you. But not everybody feels comfortable calling in, and sometimes it's that first person that makes the call that kind of breaks the ice. It's kind of hard. I mean, you're calling a radio show, right? You're putting your stuff out there in the public eye. And that's scary. I get that. At the same time, you might get some help because I'm pretty good at this. And those of you who have listened a long time know I've helped a whole bunch of people. So if you got something going on where you're stuck and you'd like a little bit of help, and potentially you think that what I just talked about might be helpful to you, then give me a call. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. Could you please turn down your radio? And who am I talking to, please?
My name is Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hello?
Hi, Mike. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I turned down the radio, so
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if you can hear me.
I can hear you fine.
Okay. I have a son who is about 22 and not feeling well emotionally.
Uh-huh.
And, I wish he would call in, but I'm trying to get him some help.
Right.
In terms of speaking to therapists. And he's over 18. He doesn't have to. He has to actually agree to it.
Sure.
So I'm in a situation where, there's the possibility of suicide.
Okay.
But I can't get him to agree to talk to anybody. So I'm in a tough situation. I don't want to provoke him because that, could present some violence.
Sure.
And, I just want to be able to tread a little carefully there. And thought that maybe, I don't know, I just happened to be listening to the radio and thought maybe you have some thoughts on that.
Well, let me ask you a couple things about it, Mike. First of all, if it's suicide, of course, that's extremely serious, and there's people with hotlines. And have you talked to people in that business at all to try to get some help?
I haven't personally, and neither has my son, but I guess I could call them too.
Well, I would suggest that because I'm gonna suggest some things to you along the lines of what I was just talking about. But at the same time, if there's some expertise in a particular area, the more you know, because obviously you're not the only person that's a parent that's dealt with this, and the people in that business have an enormous amount of experience that's helpful around that. And so I have some things that I'll say to you, but at the same time, I encourage you to make the call yourself just to see what they suggest that might be helpful. So that's just an easy one. The second thing I'd ask you is, and take you through the process that I just talked about. What is it about your son that makes you feel like he might feel suicidal or whatever depressed feelings that he's having? What causes you to think that?
Well, explicit statements.
He said to you that I'm thinking I might kill myself?
Oh, yeah.
So he's clearly identified this as an issue for himself. And how have you responded so far to him when he said that?
Well, he's not really willing to talk about it, so there hasn't been much discussion. I need to, try and figure out how I can prevent him from buying a gun. I think that's, I guess something I'll try and discuss with on one of the hotlines.
Yeah.
But other than that, trying to keep him engaged, and that's the real struggle. He's basically, just wanting to hang out in his room all day long and have no interaction with me, my wife, or anybody else. And I think that's not healthy.
Right. No, it's it's clearly not healthy. Have you asked him? And this is where we go with the roadmap. Have you asked him, how do you want to feel?
No, we really haven't had any opportunity to discuss. He's not willing to engage.
Okay, so he won't even talk to you about it. So he's just pretty much shut down. And so so how he's feeling is extremely depressed. That's clear. You're feeling, I'm guessing, just listening to you, very anxious and probably depressed as well. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned.
Yeah, and concerned. Okay. And so when you think about the roadmap, the idea is, how do you want somebody to feel? So you want your son to feel engaged. and open to wanting to live a full life, right? I mean, that's sort of
Yeah.
what you're looking for.
I want him to have some friends. I want him to get out, do stuff, feel a little bit less pressure.
Okay. And you want to feel confident that you've got a plan or a strategy that's going to be helpful around these things, right?
Well, I think that's the number one thing is to at least get him some help.
Okay. So the question I have at this point is, has he, and this is part of what I'm trying to teach people, has he ever been this way before and come out of it? Or is this the first time you're experiencing this?
Um, he has been, not to this extent, but he has. Yeah, this has been something. I think really since puberty, adolescence, he's kind of disengaged a little bit. I mean, I have to give him a lot of credit. He's fought through it. He's got a high school degree. He's got a college degree. So it hasn't been easy though. It definitely has not been easy to get where he is.
How old did you say he was?
He's gonna be 23,
Okay.
and so he's now living at home.
So when he had things that were something that engaged him, whether it was high school or college, he was out doing those things and he fought through it and he had some success. And then when that was over, he never got engaged in anything at the next level.
Yeah, no, he doesn't have a job. I think that's part of it. I've suggested that, look, he can, for the time being, there's plenty of employment opportunities, whether it's Starbucks or whatever. It's better to be out there doing something than nothing. But that hasn't resonated with him.
Right. So I guess one of the things that that I looked at when I asked you that question, when I look at in terms of the process, how it works, Mike, is that if he's ever had some success in pulling himself out of these deep dives into depression, is there a way to build on that somehow? Now, I'm guessing there's not in your mind, but that's one of the things.
No, I think
Go ahead.
That's a very good point.
Okay.
I think that he's had a very good success in athletics. I think he has not had as much success socially, but that doesn't mean he doesn't have friends and he hasn't had a good time, because I'm sure he has. But it's just a matter of getting him to listen to myself or my wife, and that's just something he's not willing to do right now.
Now, does he have friends that still reach out to him?
I guess that yes, yeah, definitely. But he's not willing to really put himself out there right now, and he's not willing to do anything like that. He avoids all interaction with us in the house. He sleeps all day and he's up all night.
What's he doing when he's up? Do you know?
I know he was finishing one last class for college.
Yeah.
And at this point, he says he's trying to find a job, but I don't know.
Okay, so a couple things that you might consider. So you've told me that he was good in athletics. He, obviously was able to get things done academically. So he's had some things there. He's got some friends. Some of what you might consider that might help pull him back is a conversation. If you know any of his friends well enough to call him and speak to him and see if they can get them to engage him and pull him out, because it might be easier for him to talk with them than with you.
Yep, I agree. His brother, but he hasn't really even wanted to engage with his brother at the moment. We're hoping that will change this weekend if they can get together. But that's definitely a good idea.
So a couple things. So one is maybe friends, maybe invite him to go see, if he was involved with athletics, maybe there are teams that are going to stop playing again with school starting back up, that are teams he was on or involved with, and maybe asking if he wants to go to a game with you or something like that. I mean, just something to get him out of the house.
I know. At this time.
Yeah.
I don't think that would be something he would want to do. Certainly wouldn't want to do with me.
Okay. Maybe with his brother. if his brother can get him to do it. But the idea of trying to engage him is part of it. I mean, one thing, this is something I learned a long time ago, Mike, and I think it's useful to share here. When I was learning a little bit about Gestalt psychology, there was this famous saying that it was Fritz Perls was the creator of this psychology called Gestalt, and he said, when you're dealing with someone who says, I'm thinking of committing suicide, then you want to ask them, well, why haven't you? Now, I'm not going to tell you that you should do that. You should talk to the suicide people about this, of course. But the reason I say that, and I think it's an important idea to keep in mind that, hey, while he's talking about it, he's still not willing to do it. Because when you're willing to do it, you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's some hope there that he's fighting to not have that happen. There's a piece of him that's fighting to stay alive and to try and come back from this. Now, there's no easy trick to make this work. But if you've seen some things in the past that have worked for him, where he's been engaged, as you mentioned, he said he's had some friends, he's been involved with athletics, so he's not a complete social isolate. He is right now, because he's just in this funk for whatever reason.
Yes.
And the question is, how engaged should you be? If he's turning you away, I think the thing that you want to do with him is not pressure him like you're saying you're not already. But I think you always want to go in every day just to see how you're doing. Feel like talking? Want to go out for a walk? Want to do something together? And just offer it up. And no, okay. See, hope you're okay the rest of the day. Let me know if you change your mind, and I'm going to keep coming in every day, because I think the important thing for you is to show up and feel like you're there when he's ready for you to be supportive. You're going to be supportive. And that's the best you can do, in my mind, at this point.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's actually what I want to do, is just make sure that, knock on the door, hello, everything okay, do you need anything? I hear answers, and that's all I can do. I mean, I try and come in and talk, and he goes, you're not invited in. And so, I don't want to provoke him, because we've been through that, and that's not helpful either.
Yeah, but I would add, not every day the same thing, but okay, hey, I'm here. I just want you to know I'm here. If you'd like to go for a walk, if you want to talk, if you feel like doing something, some kind of activity, I'd love to do something with you. I just want you to know I'm here for you. I realize I'm not invited, but every day I'm going to keep coming back and letting you know that.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
does that sound helpful?
Yeah, I think that is probably the best thing. But I think the other piece is getting his brother involved, and getting him out of the house for some type of events. Just to try and just stretch his legs and feel like I can do this, because I think he's kind of feeling like he doesn't want to do anything with anybody. He doesn't want to see friends, cousins. It's just kind of like one of those situations that is a difficult, situation for a parent.
Oh, absolutely, Mike. Yeah, and I mean, if you picture what's in his head, it's like he's fighting with himself. Right now, the fight is inside himself. But I think if you talk to his brother too, if his brother knows a particular friend that might be able to reach and break through this stuff. I mean, and even if you don't break through, the more people, cousins, friends, anybody who, you got regular people calling and just reaching out to them, it helps to keep the flame alive.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. That's good advice.
Okay, well, obviously, I wish you the best with this, and I think, like I said, call that line. They'll have some more specific information, and maybe some routines that are more specific that you can engage in. But I think you want to keep in mind how he's feeling, and you want him to feel engaged, and mostly you want him to feel supported. And I didn't say this, but you want him to feel loved and cared about.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. And
so even if he tells you, I don't want you there, I don't want you saying those things to me, I don't care. I'm going to keep coming and telling you that.
Yeah. Okay. All
right,
great.
Okay.
I really appreciate it.
You bet. Take care, Mike.
Thanks. Yep.
Bye-bye. Hi. So, I mean, that's the idea. I mean, nothing's perfect, but if I can give you some tools and some help, then it's going to make it better. And, at least you're doing what you can to help to change somebody else. And if you let that person know, in this case, that he's loved and supported and cared about, even when he keeps pushing in your way, because you're not going to allow yourself to be pushed away and get pissed off because he won't respond, because that's probably the worst thing that can happen. But if you just keep coming back and he realizes, hey, somebody out there loves me and cares about me, and damn it, I want to get back in the game. That's what you hope happens. I know somebody else had called, and I'm here at the station by myself. So if you want to call back again, I can't. By the way, just so you know, if I'm talking to somebody, I won't be able to pick up the other line. But the number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. I'll give you a moment to call because I know, again, there was another caller. So we'll see if they're still listening. 203-336-9756. Hi, this is Chuck. You're on the air. If you don't mind, turn your radio down.
Hello?
Hi, could you turn your radio down?
Oh, okay. What does that mean?
Well, you just turn the dial down on your radio. Can listen on the phone?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the radio echoes. There's like a reverberation or something like that, and so it gets hard to talk to you.
Okay.
You all set?
Yeah.
Okay. Who am I talking to, please?
Isabella?
Isabel. You're on the air. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
How many people are watching? Do you know?
Hopefully thousands, but maybe just a few. I really have no idea. But, I guess you made the decision to call, Isabella, so is there something I can do to be helpful for you?
What is this station?
The station is WPKN.
Oh, okay. What does it do? Like, what is it? Is it music or?
Yeah. Are you just calling the station, or did you want to ask me something? Because are you calling my show to? Did you want to ask something about the emotion roadmap or something in your life, or?
No.
Oh, okay.
Thanks. No.
Okay. All right. Well, sorry. Then I'm not sure what I could do to be helpful to you, but thanks for calling. You take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Well, I'm not quite sure what that was about, but anyway, if you want to call and you get something you want to ask me about, the number is 203-336-9756. The show is called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. You're listening to WPKN in Bridgeport, Connecticut, 89.5 FM on your dial. You can listen on WPKN.org, or there's an app for it. If you have smart speakers these days, you can tell Siri or Alexa that just play WPKN radio, and hopefully it picks it up and does that for you. By the way, if you are new to the show, I usually start in the beginning of the show. I'm on from 12 to 1 p.m. on Wednesdays, the first and second Wednesdays of the month. But the show is called The Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. And it's about people who are having some struggles in their lives that have something to do with, interactions with other people or sometimes internal conflict, and where strong emotions are involved. And lots of times people have those kinds of issues in families, in their workplaces, in their neighborhoods, communities, organizations that they may belong to, clubs they belong to, teams they belong to, all kinds of different kind of places where relationships happen. And anytime we're dealing with relationships, there are chances for wonderful experiences where we really enjoy being with other people, and then sometimes things cause us to feel anxious or defensive or upset, disappointed, distrustful. So there's lots of things that can go wrong too. And then sometimes we just have, as we're growing up, we have all these different influences in our lives, and we have these, you may think this is crazy, but I think maybe this will help you to know that it isn't crazy. That we have lots of voices in our heads, all of us do, and those are voices of echoes of people that have influenced us in the past. So let's assume, for instance, that you grew up in a household where you had a mom and a dad, and your mom was very conservative and very risk averse, and your dad was a flamboyant risk taker. And part of you goes back and forth between those things because you're influenced by both of them. And you're worried right now about should you or shouldn't you take a certain risk. And there's your mom's voice in your head saying, no, don't do it. It's too risky. And your dad's saying, why not? Sure, go for it. I think I've got a call for the station, and I can't take that. So if you want to call me directly and talk to me about something in your life going on, the number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. Anyway, the show is about having people who are having some challenges in their lives where they're normally pretty good at dealing with challenges, but all of a sudden they're stuck. Something's happening in your life that isn't working the way you want, and you'd like to find some help for that. So what do you do? You try and figure it out. And if you're stuck and you really don't know how to figure it out, I'm guessing, because it seems to happen a lot, that something emotional is complicating the situation. Some emotion is confounding the problem. It's confusing to you in terms of what's the right thing to do, because you're worried somewhat about what emotional experience you might create for another person, or that it's just the wrong choice for you, but neither choice seems great, or both choices seem great, and you just really don't know what to do. One of the people I'm working closely with as a leadership coach is kind of torn right now between, should I stay or should I go? She's got a wonderful opportunity with a person who worked with her in the past who would love to have her come work for them, and it sounds really appealing. But she's in a place right now where I'm working with her because there were some initial struggles, but those struggles seem to have gotten a lot better. And she's in a place where she actually likes the work and the people she's involved with and the company. And so on the one hand, she's got a great opportunity to go someplace where she's been before with a person who loves working with her and she knows she'll be successful. On the other hand, she has a challenging situation that also is really appealing, and it's at a higher level, and it's like more responsibility, and it's a real opportunity to stay in the place that she's at and to grow with and into the job. What choice do you make? Both are good choices. Those are good choices to have. But they're difficult to choose because somebody's feelings will be hurt, somebody will be disappointed, somebody will be upset with the choice that you make. Who do you disappoint? Even though it's a good choice for you, you're concerned about the others. At least some people would be, right? And so this is the kind of thing that I help people with. So if you want to call me, I've got about 10 minutes left before the show's over. I'm on the air from 12 to 12:55. 5 minutes to the hour, we have public announcements that come on and some of the underwriting that we do with other organizations in our area. So if you'd like to call me, the number is 203-336-9756. 203-336-9756. And I'll give you a minute to call if you like. Okay, it looks like I may not get another call in the next 10 minutes, so it's then up to me to entertain you in the next 10 minutes and talk about something that's relevant and important to you, and I hope that I can do that. And one of the things that I'll tell you a little bit about, which is kind of interesting, is I saw an article. I love to read about this field and about emotional intelligence in all kinds of different ways, and there was a couple things that intrigued me recently, and one of them was an article about praise. If you're raising children, and particularly if they're young children's, young being, in grade school or whatever, and you've had some experience with your children, and those children are used to being praised, then it's one of those things where you might want to think about, are they becoming praiseaholics? Now, I'd never really thought about it like this before. Is too much praise a problem? Well, I mean, potentially it can be. This was sort of the article's point of view, was that, hey, you don't want your child to feel like they just want to do something to get you to say how good they are, or how valuable they are, or how important they are based on something they do. You want them to know their love for who they are, not for what they can do. On the other hand, one of the ways of thinking about praise is to praise the process. Wow, you really seem to have gotten the idea of how you tie your shoelaces together. Or you seem to have really found a way to memorize the multiplication tables. Good for you. Those tools about memory and how to memorize something that's important for you to recall is going to be very helpful to you in your life. And you talk about it that way. You don't say, what a good job. to everything, oh, you're so good, and just, you don't make it about them just hearing the word so good. You want to focus on specific behavior or process or things that they do and reinforce those things. I mean, it's a little complicated, but it's kind of funny because it flies in the face of something else that I learned years ago. There was a fellow named Donald Faulkner, and he wrote a book called Building Positive Self-Esteem. And it was a book that kind of contradicted what is out in some, at least in some religious organizations or faiths, where they say, it's really important to be humble. I think all of us believe it's really important to be humble. And you don't want people to feel conceited, so you don't want to tell people they're too good at stuff, and you don't want to brag yourself about being good at things. But what Faulkner said was, if you want your children to have really good self-esteem, you want to be able to say at the dinner table when you're all sitting together, hey, I'm really proud of something I did today. Here's what I did, and here's why I'm proud. Now, a lot of us would feel uncomfortable doing that. You might just say, I'm happy something happened today, but I wouldn't say I'm proud of myself necessarily. And I wouldn't explain particularly what I was proud that I did. But when you do that as a parent, you set as a model for your children that it's okay to be proud of yourself when you've done something important and something meaningful and something good. And I thought, wow, I'd really want to make sure that at the time I was reading that book, I was a family therapist, that I want families to know how important it is that they become role models for their children's self-affirmation, for their children's self-esteem, for their children's positive self-concepts. Can you be a role model for this stuff? As opposed to feeling like, hey, I don't want to brag at the table. I don't want my kids to think I'm conceited. I don't want them to be conceited. I don't want their friends to think of them that way. So is it okay to say you're proud of yourself and then explain why you're proud? I think it's great to do that. And so when I saw this article, I thought, well, that's a little funky, because it sort of pushed me back away from that. And it really doesn't say that you don't praise. It just says what you praise, and that you don't want somebody just to want to be a good boy, and that they do everything to be mommy's good boy or daddy's good boy or good girl. They do it because it's the right thing to do. They learned how to do something really powerful and positive and respectful and important and decent and valuable. And you comment about what that is that they did, and you say something positive about it in that way. And so it's just a little twist on how you praise. Anyway, I thought that was interesting enough to share. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the show, because I'm going to be off in a few minutes. So again, the show is the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. I'm here the first and second Wednesdays of each month from 12 to 1 p.m. And during those times, I encourage people to call in. I usually start the show with a few minutes kind of going over what the show's about, because I know that a lot of times people are hearing the show for the first time, and they don't really know what to expect or what to do. And sometimes I've had people pull over in their cars while they're driving and just say, whoa, I'm so glad I tuned into you today, because this is something I'm really struggling with, and it sounds like you might be helpful. And that's how people call and what they do. If you got somebody else that you think may benefit from listening to the show, encourage them to tune in. Again, it's the 12 to 1 p.m. on the first and second Wednesdays of the month. For a lot of this past year, my shows were not live. And on some occasions, just like anybody else, I've got other commitments that take me away from the time that I got to be here. I try to be here on all those shows live now. But with COVID, it was really hard because I couldn't come into the studio. And so we had some help here. Rod Richardson was great about, making sure that my shows that I would send to him ahead of time got on the air. But they were taped because I had to do them, I had to do studio shows. And a lot of them weren't just me talking. There were interviews with people I thought were really brilliant and had something to offer to all of you. I really care about you as listeners. I really want to thank everybody that likes to tune in. I get occasional calls from people that tell me how much they enjoy the show, how much it means to them. That's great. I really value that. It's nice to get that feedback. I love to help people. So if, for instance, what I said to Mike about his son turns out to be something that really drives some change in his behavior, and, hopefully in a few months, he's a young man who's found himself again and is starting to carve a place for himself in the world, and has made a decision that he wants to live life and has chosen that path. I hope that some of the things that I said might help point Mike in that direction to be helpful to his son. So those are the kind of things that really, for me, make life, better. And if I can help you in any way, and it helps anybody else who might be listening, then I'm very thankful for that, because I'm certain that Mike's not the only one dealing with this who's out there today and possibly listening to the show today. So anyway, that's what the show's about. I love doing it. I've been doing it. I think it started in 1999 in December. So again, we're coming up in December. We'll be starting on my 13th year, which is exciting, and it's been a long time. I never really expected to be on. I thought maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, but no, it seems like it's been going for a while, and I've gotten great feedback from people that do listen to it and have found it really helpful. And so I'm glad to be able to do that for you. And again, you listen to Chuck Wolf. The show's the Emotion Roadmap. Take the wheel and control how you feel. We're on the air on WPKN 89.5 FM, which is listener-supported radio. And that means that you as listeners, you get to support us. That's why we're here. We wouldn't be here without you. We've been broadcasting from the University of Bridgeport, but we're about to move to a new location. I'll be here one more time, and then that's it. And then I'm going to be headed off to down by the Bijou, if you know where that is in Bridgeport. So, that's the place where we're going to be. We're going to be a lot more connected to the community, which is nice. I mean, it's been a great run here, but it'll be nice to be in the new place. And I got to see it the other day, got to drive down with the general manager and got to tour it and look at it. And a lot of volunteers were being very helpful with PKN's move. Thank you for your donations, for your time, and for your efforts. Everybody appreciates it here. And that's it for me. I'm signing off. Have a good week. I'll be back in touch with you next time. Bye-bye.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.